Hello everyone, my name is Val Cassidy, and in this video I want to take you through a application I've been working on for some time now. It's called Codeflow, and basically Codeflow allows you to create flows of your application code and to hook them up to triggers within your code to see how the execution is flowing. So this is an example of a flow I've created for Suite CRM, the open source CRM system. Here is a contact which I want to save. So we can see that on the client we need to save. We hit the save button, we do some validations, we can hit some errors, go to show errors, and then on the server we handle the save, we check for duplicates, save to the database, and we have a record saved. So I'll hit the save button very quickly, and we can see that the triggers are executing and showing us the flow through the code. I'll clear that now, and I'll go and do the very same thing. And in this case I'll take out the last name, which is a required field, and I should get some validation. So we can see now the execution has flowed through check form, validate form. Have we got an error? Yes. Then we show errors. I'll clear that once more, cancel that, and I'll go back and I'll go and say I want to create a duplicate of this user, of this contact. So in this case we should go through the client section onto the server, check for duplicate mode, and follow this flow. And hey presto, that's what happens. So we can see that just by putting triggers in the code and hooking up to Codeflow, we can see exactly how our code is executing. So now that I've shown you what Codeflow does, I'm going to take you through the steps involved in creating a diagram or a flowchart and hooking it up to triggers within your client application code. So we'll go to the Codementus homepage and we'll click on the Codeflow editor link on the top right hand side, and we're brought to the editor, which is shows you where you can create lots of different flowchart types, flowchart UML. So I'm going to start with a basic flow, some basic elements here. I'm going to call this check form. I'll right click this, click on the edit data menu item. I'll put in a new property called Codeflow ID, add property, and I'm going to give this a Codeflow ID of check form. This Codeflow ID allows us to hook up points in our code to elements within our flowchart. So I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to click save. I'm going to save this as customer flow.xml. Now within our Codeflow application, I'm going to open that, and you can see here we've got our single element within the form. So now we need to hook this up to our application code. So I'm going to go to the Suite CRM source code, and you can see here I have this script, these script elements. The first one defines the Codeflow URL. So this tells our client our JavaScript code where to send the triggers to. So it's going to send it to localhost port 8081, which you can see is where our Codeflow application is listening. And next we're going to import the Codeflow JavaScript client file. So in order to get that, we need to go to GitHub, go to Codeflow, and here we can see we have the source code. We also have some client files. So here we have JavaScript and the Codeflow JavaScript file. So all I've done here is grab this file off GitHub and put it into the root of the Suite CRM application, and there it is. So that imports the JavaScript. Then we need to start hooking up the trigger points within our code. So first point is check form. So you can see here I've put a line at the start of the check form function, which calls Codeflow. So it does Codeflow.fire customer flow. First parameter is the name of the graph that we're targeting. The second parameter is the element within that graph. Third parameter we're leaving null for now, but it's a process ID. I can explain that in another video. And the fourth name is some parameters that we want to send to the graph. So I'm going to go ahead back to the application and back to Suite CRM. I'm going to go and save the customer, and we can see we've triggered the element. So if we click on that, we can see that we've a process ID of null, but also we've passed in some information. Edit view is the name of the form that was passed through. If I go back to our code here, the form name here is edit form, which is passed through. So we can pass through any amount of information that we want. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a second element. I think it was the validate form. So we're going to join these up. Validate form, edit data. Again, we're going to add a Codeflow ID. And we're going to call this validate form. And apply and save again. And we'll reopen that. And you can see we have the two elements in the form in the chart. So in our code, we can see here we've got another fire trigger for Codeflow. So again, we've passed in customer flow as the flowchart name, and validate form is the element that we're targeting, and we're simply passing through form name again. So we'll switch back to Suite CRM and say I want to edit this customer again. I'm going to click save, and now you can see we're flowing through the application. Again, we're passing through information, timestamps, and that's all that's involved in hooking up JavaScript code. So I think I've given you the gist of how Codeflow works and how to hook it up. So rather than go through every element, I've skipped ahead and I've created some additional flow elements. So we can see here on the validate form, we can either error or not. So if we have errors, we follow the error flow, and we have a Codeflow ID here called validate error true, and within our Suite CRM code, we can see it's hooked up here. Is error is true. We've hit this piece of code, so we have an error in our code, a validation error, and we want to indicate to Codeflow that we're following this flow. And same goes for no, and we have triggers in for show errors and submit form. So I'll go ahead and save this again. And we'll open that up again within Codeflow. There it is. Again, we'll go back to Suite CRM. We want to go ahead and save, and we don't have any errors, so we've followed the non-error flow. We'll clear that, trigger an error, and you can see that we've followed the error flow. Okay, so that's pretty much everything in JavaScript taken care of. So now we'll skip ahead to hooking up the PHP on the server side. So we'll go back to our flowchart and we'll say we'll create a division down the right hand side here, or down the middle. And we're going to give that a Codeflow ID again. So handle save. And we're just going to hook this up to our client side element. and we'll go ahead and save this again. Okay, we'll reopen in Codeflow, and there's our new server-side element on the right-hand side. So back to Suite CRM. Now before that, we'll go back to our code. So I'll show you where we import this. So we get the code, we get that PHP client from GitHub again. So we go into clients PHP. There's the Codeflow PHP. There's a simple class here which you can hook up to. So in our index.php, again in our globals, we have a PHP global variable here called Codeflow URL. Again, it's localhost 8081, and we're importing the Codeflow PHP file. It's here, so yeah, we import it by using require once, and then in our code, yeah, we have this fire trigger within our PHP code. So we create a new Codeflow object and fire it using the same syntax as with the JavaScript. So we have a customer flow, we've handle save, we've null, and we've passed in current user in this case. So we'll go ahead and we'll save that in Suite CRM. Oh, we're hitting a client-side validation. So you can see here now we've hit the server-side code in PHP, and we have that element. So we're building up the flow from the client side, and now we're handling it on the server side. So we've gone through the JavaScript and the PHP side of hooking up Codeflow. I've shown you what it does and how to do it. So I doubt you want to see me creating complex flowcharts for the rest of this video. So I've skipped ahead again, and I've created this flow that demonstrates the entire flow of the customer save on the client and the server. So again, I'll open this. This is the flowchart we started the video with. So again, it just takes us back now to where we started. It shows us with the flow through our application. So we can see now that we're starting to not only document but also track application code. So as long as you keep your flowcharts up to date with your code, you'll have documentation that also helps you track and debug your application code. I hope this was useful. You can find out more at codejumentus.com, and you can also start joining the project on github.com/valcas/codeflow. Thank you, and I'll be following up some further demonstrations showing you how to isolate processes within the graph, and also how to time chart the flow through your application. Thank you.